All right, guys, so here's going to be a demonstration in person of why stretch training or lengthened partials don't provide any additional benefit. So over the last 6 months or a year or so, there was some skepticism against it. And, I realized right off the bat that it's complete nonsense. I'm going to explain to you further why that is, okay? So the way most people train, if you ever see the way most people do a biceps curl, kind of looks like this. Right, lots of momentum. So one of the factors is, I think a lot of the reasons some people may have believed to have seen better stimulus or better muscle growth with stretch training was because of a reduction in the discontinuous loading. So I think the way most people train, there's a lot of discontinuous loading. You see people do biceps curls, I'm looking around the gym now and it's very common. You've got essentially no loading at the bottom. Momentum is getting them through the lengthened position, carrying them through, and then they kind of rest at the top, okay? It's a very inefficient way to load your muscles. Conversely, when individuals are doing stretch training, say in the lengthened position for the biceps, and you're doing, what's referred to as lengthened partials, you're eliminating essentially that momentum that is providing discontinuous loading to the muscle, thereby resulting in more intensity of effort, which we know results in more motor unit recruitment. So if we come into stretch position and we do a lengthened partial, it looks something like this. Right? It almost forces you to control the resistance more and provide more continuous muscular loading. Therefore, in many cases, deeper inroad, but of course, higher effort, which translates to more motor unit recruitment. But we need to talk about the length force or the length tension relationship. Now, a lot of people call it the length tension relationship. I don't like the word tension, and this is why. When a lot of people are in this position, it's more difficult, right? Now, people interpret that difficulty as an increase in tension. But actually, when you're in a stretch position, due to the force tension or the length force relationship or the length tension relationship, the way the actin and myosin are overlapping in the stretch position is they're actually not able to cross bridge as much. The more contact between actin and myosin, the more cross bridging occurs, the more force can be produced in the muscle fiber, in the sarcomere. So in this position, there's actually a large reduction in tension due to reduced actin and myosin overlap. What people are experiencing here isn't an increase in tension, it's an increase in difficulty. It's an increase in intensity of effort. So when you're in this position, it forces you to work a little harder, and that is what people are interpreting as an increase in tension, or you get more tension in that position. When in reality, physiologically, biomechanically, you're actually getting less tension. Now, there may be some utility to people who have a hard time training with high intensity of effort to do something like this to increase the relative intensity of the exercise. But that's all that can potentially happen from this. Loading a muscle in the stretch position is not going to increase tension like the lengthened partial people believe. But it can potentially increase intensity of effort if you're not very good at generating effort. But a way to do this, to accomplish the same degrees of effort with something that makes a little more sense biomechanically, by training the muscle somewhere in the middle of that length tension relationship where the cross bridging is highest, is to simply train the muscle with a high intensity of effort throughout an effective range of motion. So instead of doing all these fancy tricks of loading the muscle in the stretch position and putting it in passive insufficiency, essentially what it is. And instead of swing the weight up and down, you know, for most people, the former approach is going to be more difficult, may potentially stimulate more motor unit recruitment compared to what most people are doing, which is this, right? Or we can disregard both these stupid approaches and train with a slower, more controlled repetition cadence, avoid swinging through the lengthened position and resting at the top, and simply controlling and maintaining tension or resistance against the working muscle throughout the entirety of the range of motion, and then taking the set all the way to true momentary muscular failure. Okay, so what a lot of people are interpreting as muscle failure is not muscle failure. It is essentially task failure. It is the inability to get another repetition in the particular movement. But that can be caused by things other than muscular failure. Could be caused by a sticking point in the machine. Could be caused of lack of willpower. Could be caused by too much discomfort because of the lactic acid or the burning sensation. But a better way to increase this motor unit recruitment safely without using silly gimmicks like stretch training or any of this other crap is to simply perform a set like this. Maintain continuous muscular loading throughout the entirety of the range of motion, and when you approach the part of the exercise that is extremely difficult, continue to contract hard through it, like this. Squeeze, unsqueeze. Guide the resistance through. Don't swing at the bottom. Simply focus on contracting the targeted muscle group against resistance. Now, you don't even have to go this slow. I prefer to go this slow because it increases the effort and reduces the momentum, but you want slow changes in direction. Squeeze, unsqueeze. And then as you approach failure, you don't just hit failure and back off. Most people hit failure and they go, ah, and then they back off. No. That's not muscle failure. That is the inability to complete a repetition. What you want to do instead to increase the intensity of effort is approach failure gradually. So when you approach failure, it's going to look like this. And you're going to contract, and you're going to continue to contract as hard as you can until not only you cannot complete the positive phase of the repetition, but you can no longer even hold the resistance, and you cannot hold it in place, and the resistance just kind of works itself down. You can get way more motor recruitment out of performing each exercise like that than doing the silly gimmicky stretch stuff, and of course, compared to swinging the weight up and down. Now, Ken Hutchins, I got this from Ken Hutchins. He says, what we're doing in the gym here, we're not lifting weights, okay? We are using the weight to provide resistance against the targeted muscle group, to stress it, to stimulate an adaptive response in terms of muscle growth, strength, whatever. The weight is simply coming along for the ride. The targeted muscle group in this case is the biceps. The resistance is coming through this machine. We are contracting our muscles against resistance in order to recruit and stimulate as many motor units as possible to stimulate the most improvement in strength and growth. This handle, this weight, is just coming along for the ride. We're not here to lift weights. We're not here to get reps. We're here to use the machine to load target muscle areas, recruit as many motor units as we can in them with high intensity of effort to stimulate as many motor units and thereby muscle fibers as possible to adapt. In terms of size, in terms of strength initially, and as a byproduct, hypertrophy, both sarcoplasmic and myofibrillar. They come together, okay? So that's a physiological explanation of why stretch training is nonsense. I mean, if you simply perform a set this way, you would never need to do something like that. So when I saw, research showed that stretch training provided more muscle hypertrophy than non-stretch training, a full range of motion, well, you'd imagine one group was probably doing this. you're getting like a half a second of meaningful time under load, while the stretch group was probably doing something like this. Continuous muscular loading, thereby higher intensity of effort. And if you're looking at the inroad model, higher inroad, all right? So you can bypass all this stuff. You can bypass every single gimmick you see on YouTube by simply loading the muscle properly and intensely the way I demonstrated here, okay? If you want a program that shows you how to do that with every single muscle group and every exercise you can imagine, go to goldenerasystem.com, download my Golden Era system. It has demonstrations of exercises with free weights, machines, body weights, cables, anything you can think of, even no equipment at all, and shows you how to correctly, aggressively load the target muscle groups, so that way you don't have to get involved in all this gimmicky nonsense, all right? goldenerasystem.com, check that out. If you want my personal coaching to show you how to get to these super high levels of intensity, so that way you can stimulate the most growth possible, click the link in the description, book a call with me, join my coaching program. Don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, and the bell notification icon so you can be notified when I debunk more fitness nonsense. See you next time.